The night I left my fiancé, I wasn't expecting a ghost from my past to show up with the same reckless grin that once ruined me. And God, I hated how fast my heart betrayed me, pounding as if it had been waiting for this exact moment all these years. It was raining in Manhattan, the kind of heavy, relentless rain that felt like punishment. My shoes were soaked by the time I reached the apartment, the engagement ring still digging into my palm where I had clenched it too tight. I had walked out of a future that looked perfect on paper, a future lined with money, connections, and the kind of stability people kill for. But love had been bleeding out of that picture for a long time. When I unlocked my door, the last thing I expected was him. Ethan Carter. The boy who once made me believe in stories that could heal broken things. The boy who kissed me behind the bleachers at 17, then disappeared like a poorly written ending. The boy who taught me how fragile first loves could be beautiful, reckless, and ultimately unfinished. And there he was, drenched, hair plastered against his forehead, clutching a notebook that looked like it had survived wars. His smile was crooked, almost apologetic, but his eyes hadn't changed. They still carried that spark, that dangerous promise of pulling me back into a storm I thought I'd escaped. "Hey," he said, as if years hadn't passed, as if I hadn't just shattered an engagement hours ago. "Why now?" My voice cracked despite the steel I tried to lace into it. "Why the hell would you show up now, Ethan?" His smile faltered, replaced by something rawer. "Because I heard you were getting married, and I couldn't," he paused, swallowing hard. "I couldn't let it end without telling you the truth." My heart stuttered. Truth. The word felt like a blade. I should have slammed the door. I should have told him he was 10 years too late. But instead I stepped aside. Because no matter how hard I tried to bury it, a part of me had been waiting. The apartment was dim, lit only by the soft glow of the city lights bleeding through the rain-slicked windows. Ethan moved cautiously, as though afraid the memories hanging between us might shatter. He looked around at the stacks of books, the half-finished mugs of coffee, the framed photo of me and Daniel, my ex-fiancé, still sitting on the counter. His jaw tightened. "You look good," he muttered, almost bitterly. I scoffed. "Save the small talk. You came here for a reason. Spit it out." He set the notebook on the table, his fingers trembling as if it weighed 100 pounds. "Do you remember senior year? The script I wrote, the one I never finished." I blinked, thrown off. "The one about the two boys running away together?" He nodded, his throat working. "I finished it. It's about us. About what I should have said, what I should have done. And before you throw me out, I need you to read it. Please." It was absurd. Ridiculous. Who barges back into someone's life after a decade, drenched from the rain, holding a script like it was some kind of apology? But the way his voice broke, the desperation tangled in it, I couldn't ignore it. "Ethan," I whispered, "you left me. You didn't just leave, you erased me. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" His eyes glistened. "Every goddamn day. I replayed it, and his voice cracked. "I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was destroy us." The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Outside, the rain hammered harder, like the world was demanding we bleed out the truth tonight. I stared at him, the boy I once loved, the man I tried to forget, the screenwriter who had written us into tragedy but somehow still believed in rewriting the ending. And maybe it was the exhaustion, the heartbreak, or the rain seeping into my bones, but I picked up the notebook. My hands shook as I opened it. Reading Ethan's words was like reliving every moment we tried to bury. The first stolen kiss. The night he held me when my parents screamed in the other room. The letters we never sent. The dreams we built and abandoned. His handwriting was uneven, messy, but it bled honesty in ways his 17-year-old self never could. Halfway through, my vision blurred. I wasn't sure if it was from tears or the ache of old wounds tearing open. "Stop," I whispered, slamming it shut. "I can't." Ethan leaned forward, his voice trembling. "Please, just finish it. It's not all pain. There's hope. There's us." That word carved me open. I looked at him, then really looked. His clothes clung to his skin, his hair dripping, his chest rising and falling like he'd run miles to get here. He was older, rougher, but beneath all of it, he was still Ethan. Still the boy who had made me believe love could save me. And suddenly, the ring in my pocket felt like a symbol of everything I had run from, everything I had pretended to settle for. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I whispered. His lips parted, his eyes burning with regret. "I don't need forgiveness. I just need a chance. One chance to prove that I was wrong, that we were never a mistake." The words hung between us, fragile but electric. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. The rain didn't stop that night. It was as though the city was determined to drown out every word between us, to make sure only we could hear the truth echoing inside those four walls. Ethan sat across from me, his hands restless against his knees, as if every part of him wanted to reach across the space but didn't dare. I was still gripping his notebook, my knuckles white. Every word inside it was a blade, cutting deeper into places I thought had already scarred over. "You think writing about it changes anything?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You think ink and paper can undo what you did?" His gaze fell, shoulders slumping. "No, but maybe it can show you why I did it. Maybe it can remind you what we had before I ruined it." I wanted to laugh. God, I wanted to laugh so badly at the audacity of it. What we had. Ethan, what we had was shattered the night you walked away. You didn't just break my heart. You taught me not to trust it ever again. His eyes glistened, and for a moment I thought he'd cry. But Ethan Carter never cried, not at 17, not at 27. He carried guilt like armor, wore regret like skin, but tears? He always held those back. "You're right," he said finally, voice low. "I don't deserve a second chance. But I had to come. I couldn't watch you marry someone else without telling you what you meant to me. Even if you throw me out, I need you to know," his voice cracked. "You were the only thing that ever felt real." The words were a knife, and I hated how deeply they sank. I leaned back in my chair, pressing my palms against my eyes. Behind my lids, flashes of us played like a reel I couldn't stop. Ethan sneaking into my room through the fire escape. The way he whispered stories into the night as if the world depended on them. The way he kissed me like he was terrified the universe would take me away. And then the silence. The empty summers. The unanswered messages. The betrayal. "You left me to deal with everything alone," I whispered, my voice shaking. "You knew my family was falling apart. You knew I needed you. And you vanished." He flinched like I'd struck him. "I know. I was a coward." "No," I spat, meeting his eyes. "You weren't just a coward. You were cruel. Because you made me believe you loved me. And then you proved love wasn't enough." His lips parted, his jaw trembling. For once, Ethan Carter, the boy who always had a clever line, always had a script ready, had nothing to say. I should have told him to leave. I should have ended it there, slammed the door on whatever this was before it tore me apart again. But instead, I found myself asking, why now? Why after all these years? He hesitated, dragging his hand through his wet hair. "Because I wrote something, not just the script, something else. And it got picked up." I blinked. "Picked up?" He nodded. "By a studio. They want me in LA. They want me to tell stories. Real stories." His eyes met mine, desperate. "But I couldn't take that step without facing you first. Without giving you this." He gestured at the notebook still clutched in my hands. "Without owning what I did." My heart twisted. The boy who once dreamed of Hollywood lights was now a man with an actual shot at them. And yet, he was here, in my apartment, on the night my life fell apart. "You still think we're a story worth telling?" I said flatly. Ethan's lips quirked in a broken smile. "I think we always were. I just ruined the ending." The rain softened outside, turning into a steady drizzle, as if the city itself was holding its breath. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. For a brief second, I thought it was Daniel habit, muscle memory. But when I walked into the kitchen, Ethan stood there barefoot, wearing one of my old hoodies like it belonged to him, fumbling with the coffee machine he clearly didn't know how to use. "You stayed," I said, my voice barely audible. He froze, turning slowly, guilt flickering across his face. You didn't tell me to leave. And he was right. I should have. But I hadn't. The sight of him in my space, moving around like he had once before, was both comforting and terrifying. It was as if time hadn't passed at all, and that scared me more than anything. I can't do this, I whispered, more to myself than to him. He set the mug down, stepping closer, cautious. I'm not asking you to forgive me overnight. I just want a chance to show you I'm not the same kid who ran away. I shook my head, but my chest ached with how badly I wanted to believe him. You have no idea what it cost me to trust again, I said, my voice breaking. Daniel wasn't perfect, but he was steady, safe. And even then I couldn't give him all of me. Because you already had it, Ethan. You never gave it back. Ethan's face crumpled. He closed the space between us, so close I could feel the heat radiating off him. His hand hovered near mine, shaking. Then let me give it back, he whispered. Or let me prove I can still deserve it. The silence that followed was unbearable. My chest rose and fell too fast, my pulse racing like I was 17 again. Why should I believe you? I asked. He swallowed hard. Because I'm still here. After all this time, after all the mistakes, I am still here. And I'll keep being here, even if you hate me for it. His words cracked something in me I had spent years fortifying. And before I could stop myself, I whispered, "Kiss me." His eyes widened, searching mine for permission, for truth. When I didn't pull away, his hand finally closed around mine, warm and trembling. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was desperate, clumsy, full of years of anger and longing colliding at once. His lips pressed against mine like he was trying to breathe life back into something we had both thought dead. And God help me, I kissed him back. The coffee went cold. The rain stopped. The city moved on outside, but inside that apartment, time bent in ways that defied logic. We pulled apart, breathless, foreheads pressed together. This doesn't fix us, I said, my voice unsteady. I know, he whispered, but it's a start. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that no kiss could undo 10 years of silence. That love wasn't a cure-all. But as his thumb brushed against my jaw, I realized something terrifying. For the first time in years, I felt like I was home. Daniel showed up 3 days later. I should have expected it. You don't walk out on an engagement without consequences. But still, when I saw him standing outside my apartment, hair perfectly styled, coat immaculate, as if he'd walked straight out of one of those glossy magazines his family adored, my chest tightened. "Can we talk?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his jaw was clenched. Behind me, Ethan was sitting on the couch, scribbling in his notebook. He looked up at the sound of Daniel's voice, and the air in the room shifted instantly. Old love met new regret. Stability met chaos. Daniel's eyes flickered to Ethan, then back to me. "So it's true." My stomach twisted. "Daniel," he raised a hand. "No, don't. Just don't insult me with excuses." His gaze landed on Ethan like a blade. "I should have known. You've been a shadow in his stories for years, haven't you?" Ethan stiffened but didn't reply. For once, the man who lived on words had nothing to defend himself with. "Daniel," I started, stepping closer. "I ended things because it wasn't fair to either of us. Not because of Ethan. You deserve someone who what?" Daniel snapped, his composure cracking. "Who doesn't spend half his nights staring at the window like he's waiting for someone else to come back?" The truth in his voice silenced me. Ethan lowered his gaze, guilt etched into every line of his face. Daniel exhaled sharply, forcing himself to steady. "You know, I could forgive a lot. The doubt, the silence, even your hesitation. But I can't forgive being second choice." He looked at me one last time, anger, heartbreak, and dignity warring in his expression before he turned and walked away. The door slammed. The silence that followed was deafening. I leaned against the wall, my hands shaking. Ethan didn't move. He just watched me, his eyes filled with something that looked dangerously like self-loathing. "This is my fault," he whispered. I laughed bitterly. You think. He winced but didn't fight back. I never wanted to ruin your life. I couldn't stay away. I pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes. God, Ethan. Everything was already fragile. And now I don't even know who I am without the mess you just walked back into. I heard his footsteps, soft, hesitant, until he was standing in front of me. His hand hovered near my arm, not quite touching. Then let me help you figure it out. No scripts, no running away this time. Just, if you'll let me. I looked up at him, at the boy who had once been my everything, the man who had become my undoing. And I hated myself for how much I wanted to believe him. The days that followed were a blur. Ethan stayed. He wrote in the mornings, his notebook always within reach, as if the act of writing kept him tethered to the world. I went to work, tried to focus, but the chaos inside me refused to quiet down. At night, we circled each other carefully, two people terrified of old wounds but unable to deny the pull between us. Sometimes it felt like healing. The way he cooked dinner in my too small kitchen, humming under his breath. The way he'd read me pieces of dialogue, his voice soft, waiting for my approval like it mattered more than any studio. But sometimes it felt like a trap, because every laugh, every shared glance, every accidental brush of fingers reminded me how much power he still held over me. Power to break me again. One evening, he asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed?" I froze. All the time. He leaned against the counter, studying me. I think about it too. The life we could have had. The fights, the triumphs, the mornings that weren't stolen. His throat bobbed. I hate myself for throwing that away. Then why did you? I demanded, sharper than I intended. He looked down, fingers tightening around his coffee mug. Because I was scared. Not of you, soft me, of who I was back then. I didn't think I deserved you. And instead of trying, I ran. My chest ached, the honesty cutting deeper than any excuse could. You destroyed me, Ethan, I whispered. His eyes met mine, filled with tears he refused to let fall. And I've been destroying myself ever since. The room felt too small for the weight of it all. And before I could stop myself, I crossed the distance, pressing my lips to his. It wasn't gentle this time. I was hungry, desperate, filled with everything we'd lost and everything we still craved. He kissed me back like a man starving. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets that still smelled of rain and ink, I realized something terrifying. I had never stopped loving him, and that truth was both salvation and damnation. But love doesn't erase the past. The next week, Daniel called. His voice was cold, clipped. I want my things back. Tomorrow. Guilt surged through me. He deserved better than how I had left things. He deserved closure. When I told Ethan, he went quiet. Too quiet. You should see him, he said finally. I frowned. What? He deserves to hear it from you. Face to face. Not just silence. Not just running away. His eyes softened with bitter irony. Don't make my mistake. For a moment, I just stared at him. The irony was cruel. Ethan, the one who had abandoned me, now urging me not to do the same. But he was right. The cafe was nearly empty when I met Daniel the next day. He sat with perfect posture, his coat draped neatly over the chair, every inch of him composed. But his eyes carried the wreckage I had left behind. You look well, I said softly. He smiled without warmth. Don't. I sat, my hands knotting together. Daniel, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you honesty. His gaze was steady. Then give it to me. I swallowed hard. I loved you, in my way, but there was always a part of me that belonged to someone else. And I thought if I ignored it long enough, if I buried it deep enough, maybe I could be the person you needed. But that wasn't fair to you. And I'm sorry. For a long moment he said nothing. Then finally he nodded. At least you said it, he murmured. At least you gave me that. I wanted to reach across the table to comfort him. But I knew better. Some wounds weren't mine to touch anymore. Goodbye, Daniel, I whispered. Goodbye. he said, his voice steady, but his eyes glistening. When I returned to the apartment, Ethan was waiting. He looked at me, searching my face for answers I wasn't sure I had. He deserved better, I said, my voice breaking. Ethan pulled me into his arms, holding me against his chest. So do you. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe it might be true. The call came 2 weeks later. A studio in Los Angeles wanted Ethan on the first flight. The script he had been nursing for years, our script, though he never said it aloud, was finally moving forward. Meetings, contracts, the chance of a lifetime. And for once, he didn't look triumphant. He looked terrified. They want me there by Monday, he said, pacing the living room, his notebook clutched tight. His eyes flicked to me, searching, hesitating. It's everything I've worked for. But I stood by the window, watching the snow fall over the city. But it means leaving again. The silence was louder than any thunder. I won't ask you to follow me, he said softly. I don't have the right, and I won't promise I'll come back quickly. I don't know what this industry will take from me. His voice cracked. But I don't want to lose you again. My chest ached. Once upon a time, he had left me without warning, and the hole it carved took years to close. Now he was standing here, begging for a chance to stay, to fight, but torn between love and the dream he had chased since we were kids. What if I can't do this again? I whispered. What if watching you walk away breaks me for good? He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. Then I won't walk away. Not if it costs me you. I looked at him, my heart splitting. Because I wanted him to take the dream. I wanted him to succeed, to prove the world wrong, to write stories that mattered. But selfishly, I also wanted him to stay. Ethan, you have to go, I said finally, my throat tight. He froze. What? You've been running from this your whole life. First from me, then from yourself. But this is what you're meant to do. And I won't be the reason you let it slip away. Tears filled his eyes, though he didn't let them fall. And what about us? I forced a smile, though it trembled. If we're real, we'll survive the distance. If we're not, at least we'll know. The night before his flight, we didn't sleep. We lay tangled in sheets, whispering the things we had been too afraid to say as teenagers. Every laugh, every kiss, every soft murmur was tinged with desperation, as if we were trying to imprint ourselves onto each other's bones. I love you, he breathed against my neck, the words raw, stripped of pretense. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then prove it. Don't run this time. Call me. Write me. Let me be part of this, even if I'm not there. His arms tightened around me. Always. Los Angeles was sunshine and chaos, the opposite of New York's winter gloom. Ethan called the first night, his voice electric with nerves. It's insane, he said, laughing breathlessly. Executives, producers, notes flying everywhere. They actually care about my words. About our words. The slip nearly broke me. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Of course they do. You're brilliant. He was silent for a moment. I miss you. I miss you too. And just like that, the distance didn't feel so crushing. Weeks turned into months. He poured himself into the project, and I poured myself into the life I was still rebuilding. Calls, messages, video chats, we built a rhythm. Sometimes it was enough. Sometimes it left me aching for more. There were days I doubted, nights when silence stretched too long. But every time I started to lose faith, he'd send me a picture of his notebook, my name scribbled in the margins. Proof that I was still woven into his story. Then came the premiere. The studio flew me out, Ethan's insistence written between every line of the ticket. I almost didn't go. Fear gnawed at me. The thought of standing beside him in a world that glittered too bright, of being reminded how far apart our lives were. But when I arrived, and he spotted me in the crowd, his face lit up like the boy I had fallen in love with all those years ago. He pulled me into his arms, uncaring of the cameras. You came, he whispered, voice cracking. Of course I did, I whispered back. The film was beautiful, painful, raw, achingly real. Two boys, a love they weren't brave enough to hold. A second chance they fought to reclaim. I watched my own life flicker across the screen, dressed in fiction but beating with truth. When the credits rolled, the room thundered with applause. But all I heard was Ethan's quiet whisper in my ear. "This was for you." Later, when the noise faded and we stood on a balcony overlooking Los Angeles, he handed me the same old notebook. "I don't need it anymore," he said softly, "because the story isn't unfinished now. It's just beginning." I flipped through the pages, the ink smudged, the handwriting messy, but the love etched in every line undeniable. "I don't care about Hollywood," he said, turning me to face him. "I care about us, about building something real this time. No scripts, no running." And when he kissed me under the California night, it wasn't desperate or broken. It was steady, certain. For the first time, it felt like the beginning of forever. Months later, back in New York, I woke to sunlight streaming through the window. Ethan was sprawled beside me, his notebook abandoned on the nightstand, his breathing even. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. My chest swelled with something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. We had been shattered once. We had bled, we had burned. But somehow, against all odds, we had found our way back. The boy who once walked away was now the man who stayed. And that was enough. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.